thousands upon thousands of irritating buffoons with nothing better to do took to the streets over the weekend to march for science. Many of these pro-science marchers are people who believe that if a man puts on a dress and gets breast implants, he magically becomes a woman, and that it's perfectly fine to kill an unborn baby until a blue fairy sprinkles it with sparkly light and turns it into a real boy. Maybe that's Pinocchio. It's all very confusing. So, if the people marching for science are so incredibly irrational and idiotic and unattractive and loud and irrational and unattractive, then what is this science they're marching for, and why are they all so stupid? I think I can explain. You see, these people aren't marching for science, they're marching for science. Science is a technique for understanding the material world through observation and experiment, like when you mix baking soda and vinegar in a test tube and then put a cork in the test tube and the mixture bubbles up and forces the cork to shoot across the room and hit your little sister in the forehead. That's real science, and not only can it be useful for making electric skateboards and curing cancer, but it's also absolutely hilarious when your little sister goes staggering backwards and falls into the laundry hamper, especially if you can get out of the house before your mom smacks you cross-eyed, as you obviously deserve. But the science the March for Science marchers are marching for is not that science, but science. Science is a leftist word meaning a combination of unreliable computer models and meaningless consensus used to create panic in order to shut down debate and promote socialist programs that will give more power and money to the people who use the word science to mean something other than science. For example, our best unreliable and continually mistaken computer models show that if we don't cut back at all on greenhouse gas emissions, higher temperatures could cause sea levels to rise about 2 feet over the course of the next century. This means that Al Gore would have to spend the next 9 decades moving his beach towel back from the shore at a rate of approximately 2.6 inches a year. Also, he should put on a shirt because, let's face it, the guy is blown up like a balloon. According to many science marchers, we must avert this computer model inconvenience to Al Gore by immediately raising unemployment, destroying the economy, and putting an end to fracking, which creates cleaner energy with little harm to the earth. Now, you may say, wait, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But that makes you a science denier, a phrase meant to remind people of those who deny the Holocaust, which is exactly like the climate catastrophe, except for existing in reality. So that's why we here at The Andrew Klavan Show support the March for Science. It's a harmless activity for mentally deficient leftists that will keep them out of their homes, where they might do something dangerous, like having sex and reproducing. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah! Well, I just barely survived the Cynthia Angulo Memorial Challenge. The Cynthia Angulo Memorial Challenge is where the lady who does our illustrations for the opening, she just tries to crack me up. And it's a memorial challenge because if she does it, I'm going to kill her. All right, so this week, the Klavanless weekend at last is over, long last is over, but this week is a little bit different because I'm traveling to Oberlin College tomorrow to give a speech on fake news. And so there won't be a show tomorrow, but there will be a show Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we'll have a full week. But this means that you have to get in your mailbag questions. I won't be here to remind you to get in your mailbag questions tomorrow. So you got to get them in for Wednesday, when I will answer your questions with 100% accuracy, guaranteed to change your life possibly for the better. And we have Knowles the Trolls here. King Troll Michael Knowles will be here as our cultural correspondent. And this is his like part-time job that he just does. It's a hobby, really. He doesn't need the job anymore. The guy is so wealthy from publishing his book, his blank book. But he does occasionally like to drop in because I buy the scotch. All right, so I was thinking he's cheap. So what can I tell you? Thinking over the weekend, I was watching this French election over the weekend, and you know, I'm always hesitant to talk about other people's countries because I've lived in other people's countries, and one of the things I realized is that you don't know the country until you've lived in it for several years, and then you begin to detect all the subtle cultural connections and all this stuff. So you can't, it's very hard to, declaim on other people's country. But I do think this thing where what happened was the two main parties, which are basically a leftist party and a conservative party, who have been governing since the war, basically, they both lost, and Marine Le Pen has now set up this very conservative nationalist candidate, is now set up to lose to Macron, who is a kind of, they say, a centrist, which is hard to know what that means from far away. And the reason I say she's going to lose, everybody keeps saying, well, they said Trump was going to lose, and he won, and that's true, but she's something like 60% down in the polls, and the elections are like in a week. They're May 7th, I guess. So it's unlikely. But it did show you that just like here, where a guy won as a Republican who's not really a Republican, Donald Trump, there's something going on. The old order is passing away. The order that has been in place since the war, since World War II, is passing away, and a new new divisions are being drawn, new lines are being drawn. They keep calling it globalism versus nationalism, but I don't really think that's what it is. I think it's a class divide. I think it is a divide between elites who are looking at a world that is a nice place to live for people who work with their minds, people who work with words. Here we have the First Amendment, so your words aren't going to get regulated, hopefully, if we can keep people like the people who run universities out of power. So things are good for us, like, yeah, sure, you can have whatever kind of sex you want, but smart, educated people know eventually the best thing to do is get married, have your kids in wedlock. That's what they do. They've gone back to church. They're having a great time. It's just the people they convinced to grab hold of the new, kind of 1960s morality. All those people are wallowing and dying and unemployed, and these people are being left behind. So it really is this class division. And, there was a piece in City Journal where I am a contributing editor. City Journal is the Manhattan Institute's magazine. And there was a piece a while back where a guy named Gregory Ferenstein went out and he took a poll of elites in Silicon Valley. And they, you figure these guys are visionaries. They are the guys who see the future. And they said, what are things going to be like? And here's what he wrote. He said, over the very long run, an increasingly greater share of economic wealth will be generated by a smaller slice of very talented or original people. Everyone else will increasingly subsist on some combination of part-time entrepreneurial gig work and government aid. Sounds great, doesn't it? It's like there's going to be 6 guys in Silicon Valley making a fortune, and you're going to get government aid. So the way the Valley elite see it, everyone can try to be an entrepreneur. Some small percentage will achieve wild success and create enough wealth that others can live comfortably. Many tech leaders appear optimistic that this type of economy will provide the vast majority of people with unprecedented prosperity and leisure, though no one quite knows when. And I talked to this guy, Gregory, and he was saying, it's going to be great. It'll all be Burning Man. You sit around, you'll take drugs, you'll be so creative. You don't need a job. You'll get a guaranteed government income because Bill Gates will be so rich, he'll be able to be taxed to give you a guaranteed income no matter what you do. And I said to him, so where's the meaning of life? Where's your dignity as a person who creates something and who makes something, who supports a family? Where's your honor? Where's your sense of usefulness in the world? Oh, you don't need that. So this is, so you wonder why people are dying of OxyContin addiction. This is why, because elites have left these people behind. And it's weird. It is weird for me personally, if I may add a personal note. I'm in a class war on the other side, because I'm an elite. I'm a guy who works. I work with my mind. I've done well with what I do. I've been a big mystery novelist and a screenwriter, and it's been a good life and all this stuff. I'm on that side. I go to the opera. I drink white wine. I eat brie cheese. I do all that terrible stuff. I know. Get out. But it's like you cannot have a system that just leaves everybody else behind. So, I was watching, let's play Marine Le Pen. Here is Marine Le Pen, and remember, her father was one of the great, these guys, the right wing in Europe has a kind of fascist tinge to it that the right wing in America does not have because we support the Constitution, and that keeps us from becoming bad guys. But her father was really he was anti-Semitic, and he was, hyper-nationalist. But she has kind of toned that down a little bit. But listen to her speech at getting into the runoff. So she won this level, and now she has to go on and into a 2-person runoff. And listen to what she says.
French people have to take on board that historical challenge, because the challenge of that election is wild globalization, which attacks our very civilization. It's a very simple choice for France. Either we carry on towards total deregulation without any border, any protection, with the consequence it entails, with international unfair competition, mass immigration, the free trade and the free circulation of terrorists, or you choose the France with borders that are going to protect our employment and our national identity. So you have two choices, and that's the real alternative, the real one, not the one when government merely change without nothing serious ever changing. What I'm suggesting is that we should aim for the real alternative, a fundamental alternative, which is going to put in place a new type of politics, new faces, and a real renewal.
You know, when she's talking about the borders, you know, people on the intellectuals, elites on the right and left are saying, look at free trade, look how wealthy everybody gets from free trade. And yes, that's true if you don't mind the fact that free trade means your job goes to Mexico or goes to some other place where they can do it cheaper and you're now out of work. And there's got to be some kind of solution to that. It's not going to be, you know, a guaranteed income and OxyContin. That's just not going to work for too many people. And the whole thing about ideas is ideas have to work. It's not enough for them to be good and noble and true. They also have to work. Nobody's going to sit around and celebrate liberty when his kid is starving. Nobody's going to sit around and, you know, celebrate free speech if he can't, you know, feed his family. That's why the left is always saying, don't let a good crisis go to waste, because when the crisis hits, then that's when they can move in and get government power and destroy the Constitution and all the things the Democrats love to do. Listen to Trump. He sounds exactly like Le Pen. This is Trump's message for, you know, his weekend message.
A new optimism is sweeping our country as we return power from Washington and give it back to the American people where it belongs. For too long, American workers were forgotten by their government, and I mean totally forgotten. Their interests were pushed aside for global projects, and their wealth was taken from their communities and shipped across the world, all across the seas. My administration has offered a new vision. The well-being of the American citizen and worker will be placed second to none. And boy, do I mean second to none.
And, you know, and people, when the elites hear this, say, oh, it's dark, it's dark. Yeah, because things are going great for them. You know, they're not sitting around wondering what they're going to do, where the meaning of their life is coming from. And the borders, you know, this is a really tough one because I am a committed anti-racist. I believe racism is a sin against the image of God. I truly do. But I also believe that France is made of French people. America is not made of, you know, English people. America is made of anybody who will embrace the Constitution. It has been that way from the beginning. It has always been that way, that you can come here and, you know, did they envision that the world would get as vast and as many people would come to America as have come? I don't know whether they envisioned that or not, but the fact is that has always been true of America, that you can come here and become an American. Ain't true in France. It's never been true in England and Germany. There were always places that had a kind of blood and soil nature. It was just natural to them to do that. That's how the countries were formed. So when they, you know, when people say, well, let's open our borders and let anybody come in, there's a reason people get upset. You know, if you bring in Islamic people who think like, yeah, you know, Sharia law would be a better idea. You know, maybe that's not such a good thing. I mean, for me, it's all about the ideas, but I can understand why in France there's a racial element or at least a cultural element to it. I can understand why in England, I don't think there should ever be that element in America, but I can understand why European countries might, you know, embrace a little bit of blood and soil and get out of hand still. But this is the problem. See, this is the thing. This is the thing. When a realignment like this comes, it's dangerous. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it won't result in good things. It's dangerous. And what is at risk is liberty. That's what's at risk, because both the people, let's call them, and the elites are perfectly capable of destroying liberty. You know, liberty is a tough thing. It's always a minority. It's always supported by a minority. There's always a minority who believes people should be free, because people should be free means the guy who disagrees with you should also be free. It's very easy to think you should be free. The government just has to tell people to do what you're doing, and then you're free. That's what most people believe. There's a guy in the New York Times writing today about how, you know, hate speech isn't free speech. This is the new thing on the left. Hate speech isn't free speech. Yes, it is. Hate speech is free speech, because who decides? Who decides what's hate speech? If I decide that saying hate speech isn't free speech is hate speech, can I silence you? You know, it's like, who decides? Nobody. It's just, you just have to let the ideas out there and let the best idea win. So we're watching this, and all I can say is that the elites are clueless to what's happening, and so we need the elites. The elites defend liberty when they get the chance, when they have the ideas. We need to defend certain ideas. You need elites to defend ideas, but they are clueless. I mean, they've been talking about the 100 days. You know, the 100 days are coming up. I'm going to pause here and say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube, but stick with us at thedailywire.com because you will get Michael Knowles. And getting Michael Knowles is one of the great experiences of human life. I'm lying, but come on over to thedailywire.com.